What is going on, YouTube fitness family? I've got my boy, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Mike Issertel. And if you guys do not know, has one of the best YouTube channels in the space. And hopefully I could be even close to that level someday. But we are doing a very fun video for you guys today. I want to do something a little interesting where we go through, if we could only pick 3 exercises for the major muscle groups, so like legs, back, arms, for example, to maximize hypertrophy. So we're not talking about like favorite in terms of like, okay, I enjoy these the most. It's like if I literally had to like win a bodybuilding show and minimize injury risk and maximize hypertrophy, what would those 3 exercises per muscle group be? And then I want you guys to go down in the comments and vote on whether you like my list or Dr. Mike's list. And let's start with legs, and I'll let you lead us off.
Quads.
Look at these legs.
Father, Pastor O'Sullivan.
Those are lean too. I think those are like 90. Those look like 98% lean.
98% lean ground Jew. Quads or legs in general?
Let's go legs. I think it makes it very interesting in the sense of that you have to like be like, okay, to like have your legs be as big as possible. Because I think it makes it easier when you say hamstrings or quads, because then you can
narrow in a little bit
more. But I think it's more fun that you have to literally be like, just to get the most out of your legs.
Yeah.
I say we cut out calves.
Fuck calves.
Yeah, fuck calves.
For the quad emphasis, there's other parts in here that train quads, but the main quad movement I would choose is the belt squat, because the belt squat by definition has no spinal fatigue. It's incapable of producing it because it ties off at your hips. And you can get into an ultra deep stretch. You can even raise and lower the platform on most machines in order to bias that stretch to super deep, bias that high tension to the super deep stretch position. So basically you get crazy tension at the top and at the very bottom. At the top it feels just fine. And I like to do 2/3 Maya reps on that. So just 2/3 of the bottom part of the rep. When I get really fucked up, I lock out, I take a few breaths, and I go again. Crazy. I can do 1 set of that, of 30 total reps with like my 15 rep max. So you just keep going. And that's it. It's delayed onset soreness for 5 days, reliably. It's like you show me an exercise that 1 set fucks your quads up that bad, I'll be very impressed.
Yeah.
For hamstrings and glutes and some adductor stuff, and obviously adductors are hit with the belt squats as well. It's tough because if I'm trying to pick exercises that have a little bit of overlap, so I think stiff-legged deadlift, as many people call them RDLs or Romanian deadlifts, there is no difference between those two, by the way. I do have a video on the RP Strength channel about that. But a stiff-legged deadlift of some kind really does hit the glutes a ton. It really targets the hamstring specifically, but it trains a lot of shit. The sartorius gets involved. If I could be a little more persnickety, I would say that Nordic curls biomechanically tend to be my favorite because of super emphasis at the stretch. They're not, again, spinally loading, etc. So from a fatigue perspective, Nordic curls have to be in the mix, but like, because we're trying to hit our glutes a ton too, which Nordic curls really don't hit, I would say that stiff leg deadlifts would be my second exercise, and one for ham emphasis. And then lastly, for a crap load of glutes and some quads and some adductor as well, I'm going with front foot elevated Smith machine lunges. And fellas, no joke, I overdid it on my legs so much, on my quads 2 microcycles ago. I was doing a thing where I did 40 total reps on the leg press rapid fire, and it was a mistake, too many. And so this past leg workout, I was like, I can't train my quads, they're still violently sore. But I gotta hit something. I hit my hams with seated curls just fine, no interference. I was like, I need something that really is gonna fuck up my glutes, but doesn't use a ton of quads, but some. I did front foot elevated Smith machine lunges. I did a sum total of 30 total reps on one leg and 30 on the other. 30 reps per leg. It's nothing to write home about. I'm in pain right now, this was 3 days ago, and every time I sit down on the toilet, it fucking hurts because my glutes are completely sore, and I got ions from it. Instantaneous onset muscle soreness. Right after each of the 30 rep set situation was done, I was like, I made a mistake. Yep. So those are my go-to exercises for legs.
It's amazing. I think the thought process is extremely thorough. You get a lot of like crossover. My list is going to be very similar in terms of like trying to maximize the amount of stimulus across the entirety of the leg minus 1 exercise. So first one for me, I think the belt squat is tremendous. A lot of gyms don't have it. So my number 1 is going to be a really deep leg press, because the way I perform it, we have the same benefits. No axial loading, so you can get really deep stretch without having to get taxed through your spine or have any loading there. Secondarily, if you track the knees slightly out, clear the upper body, keep the lower back arched, you're gonna get so much knee flexion, which is then gonna inevitably lead to a ton of stimulus throughout your whole quad, all the way up, like damn near your adductor, and then, or hip flexor, and then you've got a ton of adductors because you're driving out and you're forcing, and that's why I get like this crazy soreness in my adductors when I do super deep leg press. And then the last thing is, so slept on, you can get so much glute drive. My ass is so big because of this, probably, like it's become a problem. Like I literally had people say like, stop training your glutes. But I think it's not because I inherently train, like let's say a ton of glute bridges. I don't do any glute bridging because my leg press is so deep and like my knees are behind me. Like I'm inevitably gonna have to incorporate my glutes to get out of the hole of that movement. And that's something that's really gonna help you guys if you wanna, let's say, progress your squat and your weakest point tends to be at the bottom of the rep. It can be really efficacious for you to start working in those super deep leg presses because not only are you gonna build strength, but you're also gonna build mobility in that deepest part of the movement pattern. And that's where I've built a lot of mobility, is like really getting comfortable in that stretch position. So that's number one for me. Number two is going to be the front foot elevated Smith machine Bulgarian split squat. And it's just such a tremendous exercise.
You just gotta try it if you haven't tried it.
It's like the best and worst exercise. Like you do it and you're like, this is like absolutely terrible. But at the same time, you get the benefit of extreme knee flexion because you're at a deficit. So you put boxes under your front foot. So you get that kind of like hamstring to calf kind of stretch. And then you get a ton of quad, obviously stimulus. You get a ton of glutes because you get that deep in the stretch, and the glute engagement is just through the roof. It's like, I can't sit down after. Like Phil has been filming me, I'm like, I can't sit, like I have to stand, like so uncomfortable. And you still get a good amount of hamstring as well. But the reason that I'm gonna give the third exercise an isolation is because I have found that, especially for bodybuilding specifically, driving very acute stimulus into the hamstring tends to be really important. So I know a lot of guys that can stiff leg deadlift a ton of fucking weight, but their hamstrings aren't really developed. But what's helped me, because I'm somebody with like terrible hamstrings to start genetically, was seated hamstring curls. And what I do is I have a front, like basically lean forward bias. So instead of sitting back, I actually lean as far forward, grab, and what that does is exposes my hamstrings to stretch before even starting the movement. So like even before I top out and touch the stack, there's so much stretch in my hamstring, and then I dig underneath, it's not taking the lower back because I'm over it and have really good leverage like over the weight. It allows me to keep the emphasis in the hamstring. So while it might seem foolish to use one of my three exercises on something that's so isolated to hamstrings and arguably a little bit of glutes, I think it's a lot of times very hard to create that nice hamstring sweep in bodybuilding. And in this case, I just feel like it's the best way, and you can load it nice and heavy. You get a really big stretch and a really good isolation, minimally CNS taxing. You're like, I don't think you'll have the limiting factor of like, let's say deficit RDL. Maybe your mobility is the limiting factor. Maybe you take over with your glutes. Maybe your lower back fatigues before your hamstring does. So there's a lot of cueing too, as you know, with like a stiff leg deadlift. A lot of people do it wrong. So with a seated hamstring, I usually can cue people 1 or 2 times, and they can do it very, very, very well. So I think that's also a benefit. So that's going to be the top 3 legs for me.
Beautiful, I love it.
I want you guys below, would you pick Dr. Mike or little plebeian Eric, non-IFBB pro list? I think both have crazy efficacy. I don't think you can literally go wrong with either of these. So I think it's going to be a fun discussion down in the comments, but I really appreciate you guys watching, and we will be back in the next video with chest, back, and delts. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys on the next video.